Well, to begin, it is important to understand the concept of rational choice in consumer behavior. Rational choice theory suggests that consumers make decisions logically in order to maximize their personal utility or satisfaction. According to this perspective, consumers have clear preferences and are able to evaluate different alternatives systematically before making a purchase decision. In rational decision-making process, consumers first recognize a need, then gather relevant information about available options. After that, they compare alternatives based on attributes such as price, quality, or features, and overall value. Finally, they select the option that provides the greatest benefit relative to its cost. For example, when purchasing a smartphone, a rational consumer may carefully compare several brands based on performance, battery life, and price before making a decision. However, this model assumes that consumers have sufficient time, information, and cognitive ability to evaluate all alternatives. In reality, these assumptions are often unrealistic, which leads us to examine how consumers actually make decisions. Now, we move to actual consumer choice. While rational choice theory assumes logical decision-making, actual consumer behavior often differs from this ideal model. In real-life situations, consumers face limitations in time, information, and cognitive capacity. This concept is commonly described as bounded rationality. Because of this limitation, consumers frequently rely on mental shortcuts, also known as heuristics, to simplify decision-making. These shortcuts help people make quick decisions, but they also lead to biased judgment. Several psychological factors influence consumer choices. For example, emotions, mood, and brand attachment can significantly affect purchasing decisions. In addition, behavioral biases such as anshoring, availability bias, and loss aversion may influence how consumers evaluate products. Situational factors also play an important role. Time pressure, social influence, and making stimuli such as advertisements or promotions can shape consumer behavior. As a result, consumer decisions are often intuitive and emotionally driven rather than fully rational. Well, when it comes to comparing rational and actual consumer choice, there are important differences between these two models. Rational models assume that consumers make decisions logically, evaluate all available information, and choose the options that maximize utility. However, in practice, consumers rarely follow such a systematic process. Instead, they often make decisions using limited information and simplified reasoning. Rather than searching for the optimal solution, consumers frequently choose an option that is simply satisfactory or convenient. This behavior is known as satisficing. Understanding this difference is extremely important for marketers. Since consumer decisions are influenced by psychological and emotional factors, companies must design marketing strategies that appeal not only to logic, but also to emotions and social influences. For example, emotional branding, customer reviews, and promotional pricing can strongly influence consumer decisions. As a result, understanding the gap between rational theory and actual behavior helps marketers better predict and influence consumer choices.
So now let's move to type of consumer choice processes. So customers do not always make decisions in the same way. So depending on the level of involvement and perceived risk, consumers use different decision processes. So we have three types of consumer choice processes. The first step is nominal decision making. This happens when consumers have very low investment and already familiar with the product. In this case, the purchase is usually habitual. Consumers simply buy the brand they normally use without spending time searching for information or comparing alternatives. For example, when buying snack or bottled water, most consumers do not carefully evaluate different options. They simply choose what they are used to. Therefore, nominal decision making involves very little effort and minimal evaluation. And the second type is limited decision making. In this situation, consumers have a moderate level of investment and they may have some experience with the product but still want to compare a few alternatives before making a decision. Consumers usually search for some information such as checking online review or comparing a few brands. For example, when buying clothes or headphones, customers may evaluate several options before choosing the one that best fits their preference. And the third style is extended decision making, which occurs when the purchase is important, expensive, or unfamiliar. In this case, consumers spend more time searching for information and carefully comparing different alternatives. And another example including buying a car, a bicycle or laptop, or choosing a university. So because your decision involves higher risk, consumers invest more effort in your decision-making process.
So we continue to evaluate criteria. Evaluative criteria are the various dimensions, features, or benefits a consumer looks for in response to a specific problem. For example, you are looking for a new iPhone. So where you will find a phone that have a affordable price, a good design, strong performance, and the excellent quality of the camera. So those list of requirements are called evaluate criteria. So first part is the natural of evaluate criteria. Consumer evaluate products using both tangible and intangible criteria. Tangible factors include measurable aspects like price, performance, and weight, while intangible factors relate to perceptions such as style, brand image, and feelings. For marketers, understanding not just the criteria but how important each one is become critical. Even when consumers use the same criteria, for example, when choosing a laptop, the way they prioritize them can lead to completely different brand choices. This makes evaluating consumer priorities a key market activities. So next we are moving to the measurement of evaluative criteria. Before developing an effective marketing strategy, decision makers need to identify three things: criteria consumers use, how they perceive different options, and how important each criterion is. To determine which criteria are used, marketers apply both direct and indirect methods. Direct methods include asking consumers or observing discussions such as focus group. However, consumers may not always clearly express their true criteria, especially when emotions are involved. Indirect methods like perceptual mapping help uncover hidden perceptions and show how consumers differentiate between brands. So the next step is determining how consumers evaluate brand performance on key criteria. To understand how consumers evaluate brand performance, marketers use tools like ranking scales, Likert scales, and semantic differential scales. These help measure perception across different attributes, although they may not fully capture emotion responses. To determine the relative importance of each criterion, conjoint analysis is commonly used. Consumers are presented with different product combinations and asked to rank them. From this, marketers can identify which features matters most and design products tailored to different consumer segments. And next, we will continue with the individual judgment in evaluative criteria. Consumers often struggle to accurately evaluate objective product attributes such as battery life or durability. This is partly due to limitations in sensory discrimination, the ability to distinguish between similar options. As a result, they rely on surrogate indicators such as price, brand name, country of origin to infer quality. For example, a higher price is often assumed to mean higher quality. However, these assumptions are not always accurate, which can lead to suboptimal decisions. Understanding this behavior is crucial for marketers. And last, we have the relative importance and influence of evaluative criteria. So, not all evaluative criteria are equally important. Their importance varies across individuals and is influenced by factors such as usage situation, competitive context, and advertising. For marketers, this means strategies must go beyond product features. They need to understand how consumers interpret quality, respond to surrogate indicators, and assign importance to different attributes. By doing so, marketers can better position their products, communicate value effectively, and influence consumer decision making.
So in this part, I will explain decision rules for attribute-based choice. This means the way consumers choose between products by comparing specific attributes such as price, quality, design, features, or service. Instead of choosing randomly, consumers usually follow certain patterns when making decisions. In this chapter, there are five common decision rules, and each one shows a different way consumers evaluate alternatives before making a final choice. The first three rules belong to non-compensatory group. This means if a product performs poorly on an important attribute, it can be eliminated immediately. The first one is the conjunctive rule. In this case, consumer sets minimum standard for every important criterion, and the product must meet all of them. The second one is the disjunctive rule. Here, consumers only need a product to perform very well in one or few important areas. The third one is elimination by aspect. In this rule, consumers rank the attributes by important and eliminate brands step by step until only the most suitable option remains. The fourth rule is the lexicographic rule. In this case, consumers focus first on the attribute that is most important to them. If one brand performs best on that attribute, it may be chosen right away. The last one is the compensatory rule. This rule is more flexible because consumers evaluate the product overall. So even if a product has one weakness, it can still be chosen if it has enough strength in other important areas. Well, one important key takeaway from this part is that consumers do not always make decisions in the same way. Even when they are comparing the same product, they may still choose different brands because they use different decision rules. For marketers, this is important because it helps them understand what consumers care about most, which product attributes should be emphasized, and how a brand should be positioned more effectively in the market.
Now I would like move to my part which is the poor purchase decision. Poor purchase decision refers to the doubt or anxiety consumer may feel after making a budget. This often happens when the budget is important, expensive, or when consumer must choose between an alternative with different advantages, such as price and versus quality. And because of the change of poor budget decision is more common in the higher involvement decision where consumers spend more time evaluating before buying. So after understanding the poor budget direction, let's look at how the consumer reduces a feeling. After buying a product, consumer may try to reassure themselves that they made the right decision. They might increase the attractiveness of the brand they choose or downplay the advantage of the option they rejected. Some may also minimize the importance of the budget or even return the product to reverse the decision. From a marketing perspective, company can reduce the debt dissonance through the advertising, follow-up email, and both budget communication that reassure the consumer. I relay the concept in the consumption guide, and when consumer feel the guilty after using a product, therefore marketers should focus on the validating the consumer the choice and reinforce that they make the right decision.